So you may recall that at the end of my last video, all the books I read in 2021, there were only 24 books. And I was like, that's weird. I normally don't read 24 books. I normally read 25. All right? But I actually read 47. Okay? Okay? So we're going to go through the last ones. And also, I added more books to my pile of books that my camera's on, and I put on chapstick. Okay? So let's just do it. Number 25. He Wanted the Moon, The Madness and Medical Genius of Dr. Perry Bard and His Daughter's Quest to Know Him. I completely forgot about this book until right now, but I really liked this book. It's about a doctor who's trying to solve the problems behind bipolar disorder, but before he can do that, he gets institutionalized for having bipolar disorder. I really liked it. I got rid of the book, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't, because it's so interesting, and it was hardcover too. Really good book. Then I've got 26, Going Bovine by Libba Bray. And it's the only Libba Bray book I've ever read. I just got rid of it when I moved because I was like, I love this book so much that it's in my heart forever. I don't need it on my shelf. Okay? But wow. I cried, I sobbed. I recommend this book to so many people. It's so weird, and I loved it. It's about a boy who gets mad cow disease, so he goes to Disneyland. But like a teenage boy, not like a little boy. Alright, 27, The Final Six, which I still own. Right there. Wow. I remember reading this. I believe I was reading this in the aftermath of the Surfside condo collapse in Florida because I was working at McDonald's, and in my breaks at McDonald's, I was reading this book, and then every few minutes I would check the news because I was following the story. Okay? Such a trashy book. It's like a YA romance. It's sci-fi, but it's not sci-fi at all. It's skinned in sci-fi, and I just loved it. I don't know what to say. I normally don't like books like that, but I loved it. And why did I get rid of Going Bovine and He Wanted the Moon, but I still have the Final Six? I don't know. I have no idea. Okay. Then I've got A Song Below Water, which I also just got rid of, but I really loved that book. I was reading it in the summertime during Renaissance Festival, and I was like, it's about black mermaids going to a Renaissance Festival, and I was like, wow! I loved it. I actually got the second book too, but I just didn't ever read it, so I got rid of that one too. But I figured, all these books I'm getting rid of, maybe they'll find their way to someone who really likes them. Then I got Can Died by, now I can't remember his name, but he's a philosopher, a French philosopher, I think, from the 1700s. Oh man, I don't know his name. And I really should know his name, but I don't. And that book, I still love it so much. It's like an argument against optimism. This is the way things should be, but no, this is not how things should be. Reality is not the best possible scenario. And it's hilarious, and I loved it. And I got rid of my copy because I want to buy a way better copy. Hawkeye Private Eye, one of my favorite superheroes. When I was in high school, I was so into superheroes, and my favorite was Hawkeye. And I liked the Hawkeye comics too, so I bought Hawkeye Private Eye, which is the first to feature Kate Bishop, I think is her name. And I loved it. I really liked it. The hijinks, but I don't own it anymore. Got rid of it, sold it. Devolution, a first-hand account of the Rainer Sasquatch Massacre. I gave this book to my mom for Christmas, and she still talks about it. I give her a book for Christmas every year, and not to out her online, but she never reads them. And she read this one. It's written by Max Brooks, who wrote World War Z, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Devolution is not one of my favorite books of all time, but it's really good. It's what it says on the tin, a Sasquatch massacre. All right? I loved it. Thinking in Systems, a primer. I still own this. I read it for class. It's up, I think. No, it's in the other room. But Thinking in Systems by Danielle H. Meadows. You've got to read it. You've got to read it. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what you want to do for a living. You've got to read that book. It will change the way you manage problems and solve problems. I had to read it for class. It's a favorite book I ever read for class, ever. Loved it. Then I've got Queen of Sorcery. Oh, that's a David Eddings book. I actually have it right there. I'll hold it up. Wow, I'm like a booktuber. Alright, Queen of Sorcery. I loved it. So good. It's like just gonna make you want to play D&D, you know? I loved it. Highly recommend that series. The Belgariad. The Belgariad series. Number 34. The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This is probably the saddest book I've ever read. I feel like people, when they read this, are either confused, sad, or they find it hilarious, and I found it profoundly sad. I obviously, as I mentioned before, if you would pay attention at all to me, I'm disabled, so I read it through that lens, and it was so sad. So sad. So sad. But I liked it. But I don't own it. The Maze Runner. I gave this book 5 stars. I read it, I listened to it as an audiobook as I was working in the library. And wow, it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. So good. I'm not going to read the rest of the series, but wow, The Maze Runner was so good. I really enjoyed it. Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, which is also on this shelf way up high. Way up high. This book. Wow, also 5 stars. Also listened to it as an audiobook in the library. And it's a short horror book for like middle grade age, but it's very scary. Even for me as an adult, it was scary. I highly recommend. Very fall vibes. Very fall vibes. It takes place on like a pumpkin patch. There's scarecrows. Oh man, so good. And it's like a 3-book series. I'm gonna read the next one soon, I hope. Then we've got White Fragility. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. I also gave this one to my mom. But I gave my old copy to my mom. It wasn't like a present. But I thought it was fine. I was sort of reading it like, you know, not to get on my high horse, but I've read a lot of books about racism, and that one is not the best. But I think it's a great introduction. So if you've never read a book like that, I would highly recommend White Fragility. There you go. There you go. That's all I'll say about that. Read the book. Alright? Then I have The Giver, which I also listened to as an audiobook. What the hell, guys? What's going on? Why does everyone like that book? I don't know. I actually did like that book until like the last third, or maybe even the last 2/3, and I was like, what's going on? What's happening? Why is this happening? What's going on? And also it just felt like a worse version of other science fiction books I've read. So there's that. Then I've got The Varieties of Scientific Experience, A Personal View on the Search for God by Carl Sagan. Which I thought was interesting. I liked it. I gave the book to someone who I thought would find it interesting too. Yeah, it was like his lectures on theology. It was interesting. If you like Carl Sagan, or if you're interested in theology, or even astrophysics, you'll find it interesting, probably. Then 40. Only 7 more to go, okay? 40. Fun Home. A family tragicomic. I own that, and I've almost gotten rid of it many times, but someone annotated it, like a really smart, like English student annotated it, and they added so much context that what? There's like, what? There's like a, oh my god, the annotations this person did, how can you look at it and know all that? I don't know, but I'm never getting rid of that copy. It's so good. Again, it's about, based on a true story. A lesbian goes to college, discovers that she's a lesbian, writes home about it, and her father is like, I'm gay. And then he dies. I know. I loved it. Then I read How to Be an Alien, a handbook for beginners and advanced pupils. It's just like, it was a really short book. I think about like British people or something. I know it was supposed to be funny. I didn't really find it funny. I don't think I had enough cultural context for that one. 42, When the Stars Wrote Back, which is right there, actually. It's a book of poetry about trauma or something. I read it all in a night. There were a lot of poems in there that I liked a lot at the time, so keeping. Got to keep. Then I've got number 43, Adventures in the Rocky Mountains. I read it because it's about Colorado, and I read it up at a cabin in Colorado. And the only reason I finished it was because I was at a cabin in Colorado and there was nothing else to read. Not very interesting. Number 44, Easy Death. I still own it. It's I wouldn't call it thriller, like a noir book. Really liked it. I really liked it. And it's just an interesting mystery. It takes place around like national parks and stuff, so yeah, it's about like, it's a Christmas book too. I just loved it. So good. Then The House on Mango Street. I liked it. I no longer have it. There you go. And then lastly, Major Barbara, which is a play. And I loved it. I thought it was so funny. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but I just thought it was one of the funniest plays. So that's why I don't have it anymore. But that was the actual book, the last book of the year that I read. Because I remember reading it right around Christmas. And also, let me mention Easy Death. I read it during my husband's graduation from college, and I was sitting there in the graduation hall next to my father-in-law reading a book with a naked woman on the front. Like a pinup woman on the front. And I'll leave it at that. Okay? I have no fear. Alright? Okay, bye. Love you.